Okay, and we are live. Welcome to a special live stream career Q&A session with me, Professor Heather Austin. We are also going to be covering how to do a phone interview successfully. So today I have 5 tips that I'm going to share with you to help you successfully phone interview. So if you are new here, make sure you hit that big thumbs up button if you can hear me okay and you can see audio and video okay and everything's working for you. Also, let me know in the chat, where are you joining us from? Where are you coming to us from in the world? I know all of the chats that we normally have, we have people from all over. So it's super neat to see everyone here and joining us today for this special career question live answer series. So let me know in the chat where you're coming to us from. Say hello. It looks like LaShonda's here. Hello, so happy to have you. We are going to share some slides with you today. And I'm also going to be answering your most pressing career questions. So make sure that you go ahead and pop your question into the chat. My team is here. What they're going to do is they're going to grab all your questions and they're going to put them in front of me so that I can answer them in a nice, neat fashion. So make sure you jump into the chat if you have any questions as we are going along here. Again, if you're joining me on the replay, feel free to also let us know in the comments, where are you coming to us from in the world? I love more than anything to be able to reach people from all parts of the planet. It's super cool to see you all here. Looks like we have Louisiana in the house. All right, we have Indiana. Hello, Karen, super happy to have you. Michelle is here from North Carolina. She says, my issue is I'm super chatty. That's okay, so am I. We'll chat together. Stephanie is here from Los Angeles. Hello. Welcome from Vietnam. Awesome. Super, super, super excited to have you guys here. Now listen, you're going to want to take some notes because we have a lot of fantastic information to cover. Make sure that you get your favorite pencil or your favorite pen and your favorite notebook. Unless you're driving, make mental notes, okay? Or come back and listen to this replay. We are going to be covering a lot of information when it comes to how to perform well in your next phone interview. And we're also going to be answering questions. So again, pop into the chat any questions that you have. I will take precedence to the ones that jump in early and ask questions because we normally get a lot of questions on this career show. And I want to make sure that I answer as many as possible, but without spending all day with you, okay? Even though I would love to, but I know we all have things to do and places to be. So, let's go ahead and let's jump right into our slides. So today, again, we are going to be talking about 5 secrets to a successful phone interview. So make sure you're taking notes so that you can get all the information that you need here today. So I'm going to go through each secret individually and then feel free to ask questions along the way, and we will do our best to get to all of your questions. So the very first secret when it comes to your phone interview, and I'm sure you are all very well aware of this, is to be prepared. Now, when it comes to being prepared, there's a lot of things involved. It's not just, to prepare and research the company and so on and so forth. I'm going to give you guys some serious action steps that if you have a phone interview today or tomorrow or next week, or maybe your phone interview isn't yet scheduled, but you have one coming up, I'm going to give you the exact steps that you need to take to be successful. So again, number 1 is to be prepared. So let's talk a little bit about what it means to be prepared. So I'm going to share some things with you here. When you are preparing for your phone interview, and this goes really for any interview, you need to do your research. You need to learn everything you can about the company and the position. So not just the company, but the position that you are applying for. Because the interviewer might ask you a question like, well, what do you know about us? Or what do you know so far about the position? And if you have, if you're on the other line saying, and you're nervous and you're caught off guard and you don't know how to answer this, that is a big red flag to an employer. So you want to make sure you know all that you can about the company. So research their website, find out what are some of their values, what are things that they value in their employees. A lot of times you can get that from reading their mission statement, what is their vision. Really just researching the company as much as you can. What types of services do they offer? And then my recommendation is when you're doing that research, jot down a couple notes that relate to what you're reading or what you're learning, so that if they do ask you a question about the company in the interview, you have your notes in front of you and you can quickly mention that. Now, second thing that I want you to remember when it comes to being prepared, again, we're still on tip 1, is to jot down your most important career accomplishments. So what are some of the things that you've done in the past that are super awesome, that relate to the position you're applying for, that the employer is going to say, hey, this person is great. Let's bring them in for the next round of interviews. So you want to be able to talk about what your accomplishments are. So again, jot that down when you're doing your research. So the third part to this is you want to prepare for questions that they might ask you. Now, we all know that one of the most popular questions out there is, so tell me about yourself, right? Now, this question puts a lot of people off guard because they don't know if they should be talking about themselves in their personal life or if they should be talking about themselves in their professional life. Now, I'm going to have my team pop into the chat the video that I made all about how to answer this question. Most likely, you're going to get it in an interview at one point or another. If it doesn't come up in the phone interview, it will come up at some point. So my team will pop the link to that video that I made. Jump on over there when we're finished here today and review kind of some of the tips that I share with you there. You might be surprised by some things that I share, but I think that it will really help you when it comes to answering a question like, tell me about yourself. The other thing that you might come up upon in terms of questions is they might ask you what your salary expectations are. So you need to be prepared with how are you going to answer that. Now, it is illegal in some states for them to ask you what you're currently making. Now, they can still ask you like, what do you hope to make in this position? And you need to be prepared for that question. Be prepared. Do your research in terms of what does someone in this position make? What does the salary look like? What does the compensation look like? Are there bonuses? Things like that. You need to know all of that before you go into your phone interview. Now, the next part to this is to prepare a set of questions to ask them. So not only are you preparing for questions that they will ask you, you are preparing questions to ask them. So you don't want to go in without empty-handed. It's kind of going into the conversation without anything to say, okay? Turn it into a two-sided conversation. Ask them certain questions about what type of team you will be working on. You could even ask them, hey, after this, what's the next step in the hiring process? Now, I do have a video about that as well, so I'm going to have my team pop that in as well. It's 5 really good questions, and these questions are awesome. These questions have helped so many people land their interview and ultimately their job offer just by asking these simple questions. There's 5 of them. I'll have my team pop that video into the chat for you as well. So take a look at that one when we are finished here today. Now, the next thing that you want to do, and again, we are still on step number 1. We haven't gone, we're still preparing. The preparation phase is super, super, super important. So you want to make sure that we are getting that step done before anything else. Okay, so we're still in preparation phase. The next thing when it comes to preparing is have your resume and potentially the job posting in front of you. Now, if you have it on your phone, that's okay, and you can quickly flip through something and look at it. If you have it on an iPad, or maybe you have your laptop in front of you during the interview, that's fine too. If you want to print it out and have it hard copy, just don't be flipping through papers so that they can hear your papers on the other end of the line. But have your resume and your job description in front of you, because they might ask you questions about specifically a certain time on your resume. Like they might say, hey, I noticed, Joe, that you worked for company ABC. Can you tell me a little bit about, you mentioned that you decreased sales by 30% or whatever that might be. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Now, phone interviews, let me just say this really quickly about phone interviews. They're very different than in-person interviews in that they are shorter. They're going to be quick. Hiring officials are looking to get a feel for you on the other line and see if you are going to fit within their company culture, if you can answer questions well, if you can, talk about yourself, if you can explain your career accomplishments, all those awesome things that come up in an interview. They are looking for that in a phone interview. So you're not going to want to ramble. You need to be quick with your answers and have it all pre-planned beforehand so that you can really get in there and make an impact during that phone interview. Okay, the other thing too, and then we'll move on to tip number 2 is when you have that job posting printed out, highlight certain things, or if you have it on an iPad or a laptop, whatever that is, highlight certain things in the job posting that stand out to you that you can talk about. Okay, so let's say they are requiring someone with a certain set of skills and you say, oh, I've done that before and I know how to do that. Make sure you can talk a little bit about that. Again, we're not going to go into our whole life story here. Phone interviews are normally short and quick, unless you're working in a remote position and it's really the only method of interview, but then you'll probably move into some sort of video interview. So you want to be quick with your responses, you don't want to ramble, and you need to be prepared as much as you can ahead of time. So let's move on to step number 2, which is pretty basic. Okay, you guys all know this. Find a good location to interview in. Now, what do I mean by finding a good location? There's a couple things that come to mind, and take notes if you need to. You want to make sure that you're in a place that doesn't have distractions. For example, the other day, I was on the phone with a gentleman, and I wasn't interviewing him for a position, which was awesome. He didn't need to be away from distractions, but he was at a park and there were kids in the background, and I'm like, "Are you at the park? Are you with your kids?" And he's like, "No, he was actually on a break from work, but he had happened to walk past a park while we were talking, and it was, or maybe it was a school. It was loud, and I could hear all the noises, and it wasn't a phone interview, but just be prepared for that. If you go outside and you're interviewing outside, just make sure there's not going to be dogs or kids or all those noises that will distract you and the interviewer. So be in a nice, quiet place with no background noises. The other thing that you want to do is make sure you're turning off notifications on your phone. You don't want your phone dinging. In fact, when I first started this live stream, someone was calling on my phone and I forgot to turn my phone off. So make sure that you have your phone on silent, you don't want to be distracted. And then schedule a time for your interview that you're not going to be rushed. You know that you're going to be able to take a few minutes to take a deep breath in and out before the interviewer calls. If it's a lunch hour, that's fine, but you don't want to be rushed and you don't want to feel like, I got to hurry and get to this quiet place before they call. So schedule the time that is optimal for you. Okay, let's jump into tip number 3 here. So our third secret to phone interviews is to be positive and upbeat. Now, I know this can be tough, especially if you've been searching for a job for a while. Maybe you've been rejected from a job. Maybe you just heard back from a job that they weren't going to go in that direction with you. There are a lot of things that contribute to the job search process that can bring you down, and it's hard to be positive and upbeat. But let me tell you, this is the time to do it. You need to dig deep and pull out whatever you can so that you can talk in a positive manner. Also, smiling during your interview makes such a difference. If you can smile, it actually brings out a certain sense of energy in you, and that comes across to the interviewer on the other line. Now, if you can be positive and more upbeat, it actually calms your nerves a little bit. It's almost like it takes that nervous energy and puts it in a different direction other than nerves and anxiousness. So again, be positive and upbeat. Okay, let's move on to tip number 4, and we will take questions here in just a second. Okay, tip number 4. Now, I think this is probably one of the more difficult secrets for anyone to manage. Listen carefully and take notes. Listen carefully and take notes. Now, it's hard to listen when you feel like you're the one that has to be talking and doing all the talking because they're asking questions. But let me tell you, if you take just a couple seconds after they ask you a question and kind of process it instead of jumping right into your answers are going to come out better. You're going to know what to say. You're going to speak a little bit more eloquently, whatever that might be. Just listen carefully to the questions and listen to some of the things that they mention about the company, because here's the cool thing. You can follow up after your interview. Now, a phone interview follow-up is a little bit slightly different than an interview follow-up. You're going to let them know of something that came out in that phone interview that really stood out to you and why you want that job and why you want to move on to the next round of interviews. Now, I do have something special that will really help you out with this. Let me jump over to this screen. If you do not have this yet, the Career Advancement Toolkit, this is huge. This toolkit, let me jump over to the table of contents inside this toolkit so you can kind of get a glance of what is in here. This toolkit has your phone interview follow-up email. So phone interview, and it's similar to a video interview. You're going to use that follow-up when the phone interview is finished so that you can properly tell them that you are the right fit for the position. Now, here's the cool thing. Inside the Career Advancement Toolkit, you also get an interview follow-up email. So that's a little bit different than your phone interview. And let's say you were rejected from a position, you get a rejection follow-up. So this is an exact template that you can follow. Of course, you're going to put your own information in there that you can send to them to tell them, hey, I know that you went with another candidate, but I still think I'm a good fit, and here's why. And if I'm completely okay with your decision, but if you change your mind, it's a whole template that you can follow that will help you move on to that next step. Now, here's the other cool thing inside the Career Advancement Toolkit. You have a how-to guide to write your perfect cover letter. You also get a perfect cover letter example and a resume example. Then you get templates for all of those items. So you get your cover letter, your resume, a reference template, your resignation letter template. So all of these templates work together to really make this whole job search process so much easier for you. Now, one more thing before we jump back to our 5 secrets to a successful phone interview. Inside the Career Advancement Toolkit, you have some bonuses. So this is where you get your LinkedIn headline examples. I don't know about you, but when I first started using LinkedIn, I was so confused. It is a heavy platform. You have your headline, your summary, your job descriptions, your accomplishments, all those things compiled into one place. Well, this toolkit will help you with those most important sections like your headline and your summary. So again, there's templates in there for all of that for you to follow. So my team is going to place a link. I believe that we have a live offer link. So this is just for those that are here live today and that are following along with this process or watching this video. That link is just for you guys. My team is placing it in the chat. Now, here's the cool thing. If you click on that link, the toolkit normally retails at like $147. I think my team has it in there for you today for like $24. Super, super inexpensive. And if you want a resume critique or a one-on-one coaching session with me where we are working together, there's an option for you to select that as well. So highly recommended, the toolkit and also a critique if you want. So that is that. Now let's take a look at our next. Let's take a look at our next tip. So again, listen carefully and take notes. Now let me mention a note about taking notes. Because you are on a phone interview, they can't see you. Okay, they can't see you. So you can have a notebook in front of you to be jotting down notes. You could even have your phone to type notes. If you're on that phone, I probably wouldn't recommend doing that. You'll be way too distracted. But take notes about what the interviewer says so that you can use that follow-up template and send them a follow-up. And we'll get to the follow-up in just a second here. So you can use that template, send them a follow-up and let them know that you were really paying attention and that you were listening. Okay, last tip before we get into questions. Last tip here, let me pull it up. Last tip here is the follow-up. It all comes down to the follow-up. So here's the thing. Let's say the hiring official interviewed like 6 people. Okay, let's say they did an interview, or let's say 10. Let's say they did an interview with 10 people. They need to cut that pool in half. And they're trying, everyone's kind of equal. Okay, let's say a lot of people had this and this trait, someone was good at this, someone had this accomplishment. What's going to set you apart is your follow-up. Now, here's the thing when it comes to a follow-up. You don't want to send it right away. So you don't want to send it within a couple minutes after the phone interview ends. Wait a couple of hours. So my recommendation is wait 2 to 3 hours, then send that follow-up. And when you're giving that follow-up, you're going to again mention that you are very interested in the position. Mention something that you guys talked about on the phone. Show again that you are qualified for that job. And out of all the other candidates that they might be talking to on the phone interview, you are the one that they should move on to the next round of interviews, unless they are hiring strictly from that interview, which probably is not the case. You'll probably have to do another 1 or 2 more interviews. But again, if you want to use the Career Advancement Toolkit, I'm telling you that this template pack with the bonuses and the how-to cover letter guide is amazing. It gives you kind of the exact terminology that you need to do all of your follow-ups. So again, we want to be prepared for our phone interview, and you guys have all the notes on that. Find a good location, be positive and upbeat. Listen carefully and take notes, and then of course follow up. Now I do want to take a couple minutes to answer questions here. I know that we had a lot of questions that we weren't able to get to last week, so I might pop some of those in as well. But let's go ahead and let's see. We have a question coming in. Hello, Steve. How are you? Hope you're doing well. Let's see. Oh, Steve is asking about the LinkedIn profile review. Let's see. Does the LinkedIn profile review just give me tips or include a re-edit of my current profile? So the LinkedIn profile review, it's very similar to how I do resume review. So if you were here with me last week, we did a whole entire series of a resume review. It's a lot more in depth though than what I went into on the call or on the live series, the live stream last week, because I was trying to review a bunch of resumes all at one time. So it goes into a little bit more detail. I probably spend with a LinkedIn profile, I would say maybe 30, 45 minutes on that. I don't do any of the editing. I'm not a LinkedIn profile editor, but what I do give you is the tools and the resources and the information you need to be able to edit your own profile. So I'll say, hey, Steve, your headline, change it to this, or hey, make sure you include this, this, and this in your summary. And then I go through and I talk to you. It's a video recording of me going through your profile. It's actually pretty cool. My clients love it. It's one of the things that they say has put them over the top when it comes to their profiles and their resumes. So really good question. I do want to show you guys something really quickly. Wrong screen. Here we go. I want to show you guys something really quickly. So these are just a couple of results that some of my clients and my students have had just from either my courses or the Career Advancement Toolkit, or even just some of the things that I offer out there on the internet. So Stacy posted in our private Facebook group. If you're not a member of that yet, jump into there, the Career Club on Facebook. She says, I finally have an interview this week for my first choice company. Well, then she posted, I want to show you her follow-up. She says, update, I got the job. Thank you for all of your guidance. I also have, let me show Randy. So Randy popped in and said that he got a job paying 2 times what he currently makes using one of these templates. One more. Let me see. Okay, here we go. Okay, Scott also popped in and says, "Hey, I had a second interview on Monday. Called back the next day to schedule for a final interview Thursday. Went great, and I did hear from Scott. He actually ended up getting the job. So super exciting news." For these individuals. We also have another individual that popped in and says, "Hey, I have a second phone interview with a group of engineers." So he said he got some of those tips from my channel. And then Sally says, "Well, I have an interview in a big company on Thursday." So a lot of really, really, really great results and a lot of success out there. Randall says, I've been invited to an interview next Friday." So a lot of these individuals are using some of the tips and some of the things that I share, not only on my YouTube channel, but inside the Career Advancement Toolkit, inside my courses. So a lot of really awesome things are happening for individuals out there that are following some of this guidance. Okay, a couple more questions here. Let's see. So someone says, "Does really my endorsement help me to land a job?" So what I'm assuming is that you mean endorsements on LinkedIn. I think that's what you're assuming. When it comes to LinkedIn, back in the day when LinkedIn was first out there, and even up until they did a huge change a couple years ago to their platform, endorsements were big because you could endorse people so easily for this and that and all sorts of things. Well, now LinkedIn is kind of focused in more on the authentication of those endorsements. So when you endorse someone, you actually have to tell them, you have to select the endorsement that you want for them, and then you have to but you have to select, how do you know them? Like, if you can endorse them, how did you work with that person? So endorsements are not as watered down now as they were in the past. So if you look at a lot of profiles that were built, like years ago, they might have like 100 endorsements for some skill and another 100 for this skill. And then if you look at profiles that are just getting built now, they're not going to have as many endorsements. I can't say if employers, because it depends on the employer. Some employer might say, "Hey, that might impress them," but then another employer, knowing and understanding the intricacies of LinkedIn, might say, "Oh, that's not something that's as important to me." So I would take a look at building your endorsements, of course. So keep moving forward with that. You can even ask friends and colleagues and coworkers to endorse you for certain skills and things like that. And that will help build that endorsement pool of yours. But again, I wouldn't spend too much time worrying about, "Oh my gosh, if I don't have this endorsement, are they not going to hire me or bring me in for an interview?" Good question though. Awesome. Hello, Michelle. How are you? Michelle asks, "In the recent past, some employers shun follow-up contact. Don't call us, we'll call you. So I worry about bugging rather than impressing." Yes, Michelle. So this is a thing. If the employer, it's the same thing as if they say, "We don't want a cover letter, don't send us a cover letter," then don't send them a cover letter, right? If they are not looking for a follow-up, I would almost look at a way around it. So rather than doing like a formal official follow-up like you might think, I would look for a way to even just drop a line to a hiring manager, like a quick casual, like, "Hey, you're not necessarily doing a full-blown follow-up and telling them why you are the person for the job." Here's another tip that you could do, Michelle. Thank you notes are still something that gets individuals to stand out. Write a card, send a thank you note, get their address. Now, you're not necessarily going to call them and be bugging them, but you want to still keep on their radar. So doing these little casual conversation starters with them, I think can really help you. Super awesome questions, you guys. Okay, we are about at our time limit. So I am going to go ahead and sign off today. We will be back again on next week, either with a live show or you'll get some video. We have a bunch of videos coming out for you just to help you with that job search. So let me know again if you have questions that I didn't get answered today. Post them in the comments of this video so that I can take a look at those. Also, don't forget about the Career Advancement Toolkit. You have a live offer today for those that are here today and watching this video is just for you. I don't share this out to the world. It's just for those that join me live and watch my videos. So again, super excited that you guys joined me. Thank you so much for being here with me, and I will see you all next week.